Dobré odpoledne, dámy a pánové. Mé jméno je Jan Borovanský a dovolte mi, abych vás provedl dnešním odpoledním blokem, který je vlastně i zároveň posledním živě vysílaným blokem z našeho konferenčního studia. Díky obsahové náplni jednotlivých příspěvků uslyšíme celou řadu technologických novinek, které byly představeny již v minulosti v různých našich konferencích. Velmi nás těší, že někteří uživatelé již tyto novinky aplikují do praxe. Než se však k těmto prezentacím dostaneme, začneme trošku obšírněji, filozoficky. Začneme vizí společnosti Esri, která vnímá postupující trend digitální transformace, který je navíc akcelerován i děním současné doby. Jsou to právě utility, které de facto tradiční agendu, jako je dokumentace a plánování sítí, začínají nutit i řešit nové otázky, jako je například rostoucí elektrifikace nebo zvyšující se podíl zelené energie a další aspekty. Na toto téma promluví člověk z Esri nejpovolanější. Ředitel sekce pro utility pan Rashid a jeho kolega Demer, kterým tímto předávám své slovo.
Hello everybody, and thank you for allowing us to be with you today. My name is Rashid. I'm the group lead for infrastructure, which includes electric, gas, telecommunications, and water at Esri. And I'm here with a good friend of mine, Demer. And we're honored to be here with you today and to have the opportunity to share with you our view of the market and where we're going with our company and technology to help you. Many of you maybe know this already, but Esri's been working with utilities for a long time. Actually, some of our first customers are from the utilities and communications industry. Customers like customer number 9, 49, 60, and on are all utilities or telecommunications customers. And we've learned a lot from you all over our time working together. And over that time, we've really begun to appreciate how important GIS and geography is to your core mission. And since then, we've continued to grow, and we've been lucky enough, and we're very thankful that we have several thousand utility customers today. Globally, well, more than 3,000 electric and gas utilities alone. And we don't take the responsibility and our obligation to you lightly. We very much appreciate your business and your trust in us. And as you'll see, as Patrick and I talk throughout the rest of today, we're working hard to provide better technology for you. Well, speaking of 3,000 customers or more, why don't we take a look at what some of you are doing locally in the Czech Republic? There's some really neat examples happening. You'll hear in a little bit from Ches and the pilot project they're doing with the utility network. That sounds pretty interesting what they're doing. Also at Prague Energy, doing asset management facility mapping for quite some time. And then more broadly, there's a whole bunch of you out there that have adopted our portal technology or our system of engagement for sharing detailed information both internally and externally, whether it's to contractors or to government agencies and communities. And then on the bottom there, you'll see Prague Radio Communication, who's incorporated 3D panoramic video inside their towers so they can see if there's any new structures blocking signal capacity. Very interesting work. More broadly across the United States, there's actually around the globe, there's a lot of work going on. As you see in the top left, interesting power consumption 3D modeling. On the bottom left, new 3D visualizations of assets. Actually, Patrick will show us a little bit of this. And then a whole bunch of work around asset management. While telecommunications, and you might think just telecommunications in general, but we know many utilities are now building communications networks as well, are using ArcGIS to manage the detailed fiber strands, to incorporate work order management, to put it in the hands of field crews to do data collection. Pretty exciting. The water side, I'm always impressed. Right there in the middle, the real-time object recognition and the augmented reality where you can walk down the street and actually see the assets underground. in the 3D modeling of the vulnerability of fire hydrant failures. Some exciting work, both locally, globally, and as I said before, Patrick and I and the rest of the team are really excited and have continued to learn a lot. As I mentioned earlier, there's a whole bunch of you that are using our system of engagement and portal technology to collaborate both internally and externally. This has really taken off. This is really a big transformation, and I encourage you all to look at this in more detail. Some of the highest return on investment of your system can actually be how you get that information out to people so they can make better decisions. Another thing that we wanted to point out is the new and emerging inside plant asset management work, using the facilities management capabilities of ArcGIS to manage buildings, not just planimetric or in 2D, but the full 3D aspects of their buildings and infrastructure. Another thing I think many of us have felt recently is the ability to prepare for and respond to natural disasters, whether those are weather events or like we're having here in the United States, the fires on the West Coast for a long period of time, or the hurricanes in the South. We know that many of you have these issues in your location, and it's important to be able to prepare for and respond to these disasters. And speaking of one that is still affecting us, unfortunately, and Patrick and I sincerely hope you're all doing well and your families are doing well, is the situation of COVID-19. And this definitely brought GIS to the forefront. Maybe many of you have seen the dashboards that have been helping from the very beginning people get awareness or understanding of the circumstances of COVID, and then very quickly pivoting to not just understanding and seeing the patterns and trends, but then applying it to understand what to do or respond to it. This has been very insightful for us, and unfortunately, we're not through it all yet. But I can assure you that we're here for you, and if you never need help configuring your systems to apply to the COVID situation, just let us know. If we back up a little bit, we know that things are changing at a higher rate of speed today than they ever have in the past, right? We just talked about some of the events that are in front of us now, but also technology is changing very fast, right? And here at Esri, with the commitment to R&D, we continue to move the technology, and sometimes it's relatively hard to keep up. So Patrick and I will discuss more of that in a little bit. But more importantly, in your industry, in the utility industry in particular, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of change, and I'm sure you're all feeling it right now. Not only do you still have the traditional business that you've always had to deal with, which is on the left-hand side of the screen, the aging assets and infrastructure, the quality of data, delivering satisfaction to customers, and managing cost. There's a bunch of new stuff coming in on the right, the injection of renewable energy, the needs for digitization and grid modernization, changing regulations and compliance, and the real need, a new need for better business intelligence. We find it interesting when you look at the utility business over time, it's traditionally looked something like this, a standard supply and demand model where product is produced in mass and delivered over big pipes or wires down to smaller and ultimately consumed. And you know, we've all been seeing this happen, is the injection of renewable energy or distributed energy into the networks that were really designed to flow power one way or flow the commodity one way. Now having a situation where power is coming in from multiple sources, or the commodity is coming in from multiple sources with variable reliability. And as it continues to move forward, we see the digitization of that grid continuing to evolve, with more and more sensors located across the network, more and more telemetry installed, and more distributed energy or renewable energy. And so, as you know, the systems that need to be built to support it and the information needed to drive it are increasingly important. And here's an interesting thought. What we've been seeing is the need for geospatial intelligence continues to become more and more important. as all this stuff is happening somewhere. That opens up sort of an interesting thought, right? So what do we need to do going forward? Well, what we're trying to do here and trying to help you with is to be able to geo-enable this whole notion of grid modernization for utilities or digitization of utilities. And if we do this right, which we think we're getting pretty close, what we're gonna have here is a complete GIS that not only builds the network, the new network capabilities, some of you have probably heard of the utility network, but offers much better analytics in real time so people can see patterns and trends in performance of that network, and that information can be shared in real time to put in the hands of people so they can go to work and make better decisions. So that much more complete system comes into play in the need of grid modernization, and it's very important that that complete system then is connected to the entire IoT framework, and up we come with really what's known as a digital twin. So that's a lot of information, and what I wanted to do is just sort of pause for a second and bring my good friend in, Patrick Demer, and Patrick manages our technical resources for utilities and telecoms, and have him give us a good understanding of what's happening here from a technology. Patrick, you mind sharing your thoughts on this slide?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jeff. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the technology and take a look at a demonstration that articulates some of the points I'm going to go through here. So what we see here is really a representation, of ArcGIS and how it works. And it's built on top of a services-based architecture, which means all of these users along the top, those traditional mappers and drafters in the office, a user that might just need to view the data through a simple web application or a dashboard, or users in the field that need to have access to the maps out while they're working and help with responding to events, to developers that might just need to include a map inside of their application. All those users connect through those services with an identity, and that's checked by that padlock icon there. It's checked as they come in when they try to access the content and the capabilities of ArcGIS. And as they access that information, those capabilities, there are more business rules that can be layered on top to make sure as they contribute data to the system, it's done adhering to those business rules. And finally, identity management is a core part of all of this, which we'll dig into on the next slide here. So information security is incredibly important to us here at Esri. Just like in any other system like email or social media, you have your own account. You have your own identity within that system. Within ArcGIS, you have your own identity. That identity might come from the one you use every day, your sort of corporate account, like the one I have here at Esri. I use that in ArcGIS as well. Now, when I come in with my account and connect to the system, I'm assigned a user type. Now, this is going to determine the set of privileges that I have inside the system. A couple examples are a viewer that can just view information, or an editor that can contribute, or an administrator that has control over the entire system. Now, once we determine that user type, we can assign roles and privileges, essentially fine-tuning what that user can do. So they might be an editor, but they can't edit all the data. They can only edit a subset of it. Now, we organize users inside the system through groups, and groups have permissions as well. Groups have an owner, groups have contributors, and groups have just members. Inside that group are what we call items. Items are things like data, feature services, data, maps, application configurations, and those items have permissions as well. So as we enter into the system, we can encapsulate a whole set of business rules that get applied as you try to access the data, perform an edit, perform a view. We encapsulate all these business rules and logic with the data. Now I want to start in the very center here, which what I think is the most important part of what you're going to see here, which is the network rules. Now this dictates how features can connect to each other, what's allowed in the system, what is not allowed. So whether it's electric, gas, water, or telecommunications, we have comprehensive data models that include these rules. And we build these rules through working with users and through adhering to what physically works in the real world. So we're just modeling real world. Jeff touched on that digital twin, and you see that in action here with these network rules. Now, if I take one step above here, you see this thing called attribute rules. These are really simple scripts you can write where you can automate a whole bunch of activity and things that occur after a user does something as simple as adding a pole to a map. You might want to interrogate where that pole is, see how far away it is from water bodies, see what tax district it's in, and assign those attributes all to the pole without the user having to take any action. Take a couple steps below and you see this term called contingent values. Contingent values is really interesting because as I make a change to a feature, say change the height of the pole, that will have an effect on several other attributes about that pole. Certain heights can only be allowed certain material types of poles and might even have a setting as to how that pole needs to be set in the earth. So we make sure we're really accurately getting information into the system that adhere to these rules. And then finally, every change I make in the system is tracked. We think of these as digital fingerprints, and you'll see these in action in just a moment. So let's take a look at where these business rules actually reside. So traditionally, applications are written in a client-server approach, meaning all the logic needed for that application to run is there inside the client. So if you have a traditional Windows desktop application that has all the logic it needs as you work with that tool. Web applications work the same way. You write code inside of a web application, everything that's needed is right there. Mobile applications work the same. You're writing logic for that mobile app. Now, the challenge is clear. You're writing code 3 times, which is extra work, but there's also consistency challenges where you need to make sure that those rules and how that behaves are the same across all of these ways users access the data. Shift over to the right and to this large change we made to services-based architecture. This means every application will connect through services with that identity, and the data and all the business rules are back securely on the server. So no matter how I connect with whatever mode or whatever process, I get the same answer, I get the same business rules applied. So let's take a look at this in action through a short demonstration. Great. So here I am in ArcGIS Pro, and the first thing I want to point out is that identity got pushed over from my Windows laptop when I logged on to the Esri network this morning. It authenticated me. When I open ArcGIS Pro, that authentication just gets passed over. Call that single sign-on. Now, what this identity did was first it checked to make sure I had a valid license for ArcGIS Pro. Then it lets me into the application. Then when I try to open up this map here, it'll also check that identity again and make sure that I have access to the group that contains this map and the data inside of this map. And then next, when I perform an edit in just a moment, it'll check my identity again and will make sure that I'm a valid editor and I can edit the types of features I'm attempting to. So that information security is a large part of this application, and you see it in a couple different places. So let's focus on the map here. This is a representation of really a complete electric network. We have generation modeled in here. We have transmission, which are these green dotted lines. We have transmission or sub-transmission substations, which are these yellow boxes here. And then as I dig in further, you'll see we have a complete distribution network all the way down to the customer and even modeling solar panels, electric cars, and battery storage. So we think of this as really a complete network all inside of one system. So I'm going to zoom down here to one of the substations that we've modeled. Now, as you can see, this has quite a bit of detail in it. We're modeling the individual devices inside of the substation, and we're drawing those in real-world space. This is where the substation is. You can see transmission coming in. You can see distribution leaving, and I have all the details I need inside that substation. Now, we can represent this, obviously, in a GIS 2D view here. We can also represent the substation as a schematic diagram. So now I'm seeing that exact same data. I'm just representing it and drawing it simplified in a schematic. It's not a copy of the data. It's looking at the same data, just representing it a little bit differently. Now, there's a third way that I could view data, which is in 3D. So we've worked a lot. We've worked really hard to make 3D an integral part of our platform. We've also worked to make sure that 3D data, BIM data from AutoCAD just comes right into ArcGIS. So this is a BIM model of a substation. We just brought it right in, connected it up to the network, and I've now got a digital twin of my substation right inside the GIS that I can work with. That's really powerful. All right, so let's switch back to my 2D mapping. So I'm going to go down to a neighborhood level inside the distribution system and perform an edit so you can see those business rules in action. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the right edit template. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a surface transformer on the map right as part of the underground system. But before I do that, I wanted you to see how these network rules work in action. So as I said, I picked a surface transformer that's meant to serve an underground system. So as I hover this feature over overhead sections of the network, you'll notice it doesn't snap to that. I don't get any tip because this isn't a valid connection within the network rules. Now, once I hover over this underground line, you'll see it nicely snaps right to it, gives me a snapping tip, tells me exactly what I'm snapping to, and it's only going to allow valid connections. Okay, so there's just the rules in action there. All right, so let's find the right place, the endpoint of that cable. Let's place that surface transformer there. They'll add that to the map. They'll do another check to make sure all the rules are valid. And I'm going to make one more change to the system. Now, these templates come with a bunch of default attributes. It'll basically fill out a bunch of fields for me. Some will be calculated for me automatically, and I can change those as needed. So let's take a look at the attributes of the surface transformer we just placed. And you'll see a bunch of default values. You'll also see that editor tracking. So it's grabbed my identity, and it's placed that with the features, so it knows I was the creator of this transformer. It has the date and time. And as people make changes to this particular asset, it'll tag their digital footprints throughout that process. Now, what I want to show is I want to show how some of those attribute rules come into play. Now, attribute rules get fired when I make a change to a feature. And we have one set on this phase field. Now, for this type of transformer I picked, the default phasing is ABC. It's a 3-phase transformer. But if I switch to single phase, like C, that attribute rule will kick in, will come back and show me a message telling me that I haven't picked a valid configuration. I need to pick ABC. Once I pick ABC, that goes away. My edit's valid, and I can continue with the rest of my work. Okay. Now, these rules get applied anywhere I connect to the data. So as I connect from a mobile device here with an application that has access to the data, you'll see not only the same map, same symbology, same data, but you'll see those exact same rules come into play because we've talked about those business rules are back on the server. Now, what I want to do is I want to add another transformer to the map here. So I'm going to zoom in nice and close where I've got a pole and some overhead cables. And I'm going to go find the right transformer edit template. So we'll find a medium voltage transformer bank, and we'll fill in just one attribute about the phasing. I'll place that right near the pole. And if I had GPS, I could use GPS. But we'll add the pole and we'll submit that. So we'll take my edit and we'll put it back to the server, and it will run through all the rules I have for this type of transformer. Now, when the data comes back, you can see it's tagged my user as the creator. It's tagged the proper date and time. And then what's really important is there's this field here called association status. It knows that this transformer is attached to that pole. It knows it's on that pole because I placed it in close proximity, and we have a rule that says associate those two if they're in close proximity. So a simple example, but really powerful, that I can do an edit from my phone and have advanced business rules kick in on the back end, and all I need to do is just use a phone. So quick example there, but really powerful. The last example I want to show is how a business user, someone that's not a GIS specialist, not in the field, accesses this data and how they understand the information. So this dashboard is showing me that same map we took a look at on the desktop and out in the field. So I'm seeing my complete system. I'm seeing my distribution feeders right here. And around my map, I'm getting a bunch of analytics about the system. I'm seeing my total connected load down here of every circuit. I'm seeing total customers of every circuit. And on the right-hand side, I'm seeing a bunch of analytics for my selected circuit. So I've selected the circuit number 1 here. As I switch to number 3, you'll see those analytics update. It's telling me how many connected customers, how many connected transformers, how many switches, what the total customer load is. These are real-time analytics. So as users add data to the map, connect up more customers, or make a change, open a switch, close a switch, these analytics are updated automatically. So any user that connects gets the right information in real time in a simple to view application like this dashboard here. So I'll send it back to you, Jeff, but I think we saw a couple of powerful examples there of really a complete GIS from a couple of different users' perspective.
Yeah, Patrick, that was fantastic as usual. And you showed some very interesting things, right? You talked at first about the security and the business rules and all that, and then when you showed it in the desktop and taking care of that data, an interesting thing is that was actually running in the services, not in the application, and which allowed you then to take it to the field and do similar activities in the field, updating data, firing those same rules, making sure the real corporate business logic is intact. And then when you brought it to the operations dashboard, you were delivering the same content, but displayed the right way. And it was there where it was highlighting those analytics, right? It wasn't a custom application, was it, Patrick? That was a configured application that was just basically relying on the embedded analytics inside the network and displaying those to screen. That's kind of big because it for the first time, it really gives us an opportunity to coordinate operations where that same network logic, the same network topology, the same network configuration is available regardless of the person, regardless of their role, and regardless of where they are. So you don't have to extract data to a PDF or a printed map or another format to make it available to customer service. You can just share that map and service and configure. You don't have to build a custom mobile application with all kinds of special tools. You can share that data and tools, and you can be assured that the people in the field, when they're running a transaction, it's actually running the same business logic that was established in the office. And we think this will be a big game changer. Actually, we're quite certain of it, as it will give the new set of infrastructure to enable grid modernization. What Patrick didn't show is then connecting that whole system to the IoT framework and then having real-time sensors come to life as well. That's the notion of this complete GIS for utilities, and it's designed to enable the grid modernization or the digitization of utilities. And there's some fantastic work. Really some fantastic work going on by many customers. You'll see in the top center here, Ches, and we're really proud and excited of the work that they're doing with our latest technology. There's many others here in different areas of the world. On the far right, you see a company, Hafslund. They're actually now called Elvia. They had a name change there in Norway. They're running a big transformation project too, and really insightful work there. And then on the bottom left, a company by the name of Ørsted, or now more commonly known as Radius in Copenhagen. And they're doing some really interesting work too with their grid modernization and integration. So there's a lot of interesting work happening, and we're real excited and proud of all of it. And we covered a lot of information here in a relatively short period of time, and we wanted to give you a feel for, well, first of all, our appreciation of your work, and secondly, an understanding of what's happening in the market overall and in general for utilities, and then also where the technology is going. And needless to say, there's a lot of change happening, right? I think we all can feel it, and sometimes it's like, whoa, what do we do about all this change that's happening? But the interesting thing is GIS continues to get more and more drawn to the center of discussions. More and more, we see people like yourselves being the most important and strategic technology to enable this modernization, not just to feed ADMS, but you got to do that, but to deliver the content broadly across the organization. And this can be challenging, but it also presents a whole new set of opportunities. A whole new set of opportunities for thinking differently and solving problems differently. And it offers us all a moment to take a step back, sort of like what you are doing today at the conference, and learning the latest methods in deploying. Because doing what we've always done because we always did it that way isn't always the best thing. And we have to sometimes start to change by thinking differently and how we're going to approach problems in a new, as Jack would say, a new modality. Because your work is critical. It's essential. I think the work of, and I know Patrick would agree with me, the work of the GIS teams and the GIS professionals that are building this new geospatial infrastructure to power energy transition or grid modernization is about as important as it's ever been, if not much more important. And so I think with that, I'd just like to say thank you from Esri for being our customers and for being interested in what we're doing. To let you know, we appreciate the work you're doing, and we know it's not easy, but it's really important. And I think we keep going in this direction, we're gonna make a very big difference. So thank you, Patrick, for joining me today, and thank you to our friends at ARCDATA for allowing us to share some thoughts with you. We sincerely hope you have a great day. Bye-bye now.
I my děkujeme. Velmi nás mrzí, že Jeff ani Patrik zde nemohou být s námi osobně. Jejich příspěvek vysloveně nutí k jakémusi zamyšlení a budí mnoho otázek a věřím, že následující diskuze s nimi by byla určitě zajímavá a inspirativní. Já jsem se před malou chvilkou díval do konferenčního rozhraní, zdali nepřibyl nějaký dotaz. Zatím jsem žádný nezaznamenal. Určitě prosím využívejte rozhraní pro vaše dotazy i v průběhu následujících příspěvků. A pokud máte jakýkoliv dotaz k Jeffovi nebo Patrikovi, určitě nám je prosím pošlete, ať už prostřednictvím toho rozhraní, který jsem právě zmínil, anebo dodatečně e-mailem. My pro vás rádi zprostředkujeme jejich odpovědi.